Hi, dear students. So let's rock and roll. It's show time. So you're going to close read chapter 1 from Windrose Suites by R.K. Narayan. So there are some requirements from your part, some essentials to be fulfilled, to be satiated from your side. The first thing is you have to have the novel with you, right? That's the basic. And apart from that, I prefer if you have a pen or a pencil in that case. Because if I point out certain aspects, point out certain passages, point out certain sentences, and it's easy for you just to make out notes on the spot while just referring to this video lessons. As well as I prefer you have a highlighter, a light color highlighter, either a yellow one or orange one, not those kind of certain highlighters have this dark colors that when you just highlight, it'll just cover the text entirely, or just dodge those things. Just don't use those colors of highlighters, because in a certain point I may tell you just to highlight a certain sentence because of its significance, or underlying meanings, or poetic qualities and certain things. So you better have highlighted with you. And apart from that, the final advice is, because I'm not going to repeat these things, right? This is the first time I'm going to say this thing, and this is the last time. So you can pay careful attention to what I say. The last thing is, like, if you miss, in case, like, if you are wondering at a certain moment, like, so where are you, what's the page you are reading to right now, you can always refer to the bottom, the headline on this YouTube video, which says it's chapter 1, or either it says chapter 2, or either it says chapter 3. So you know which chapter we are. So what you have to do when I say a sentence, if you are just lost, just pause the video for a while. Okay, pause the video and make sure you just find the exact spot, exact word I'm saying, sentence. Just go through it, browse it, skim it, and then just continue with the video. And another tip to make this reading experience a kind of a smooth and kind of a meaningful one is, if you find my verbal speed, if you find my explanations is a little faster, I would suggest you have these options in the YouTube. Just adjust the speed, adjust the explanation speed. Just go to 90%, or just go to 80%, or what you prefer on your own, right? And that's it. So I'm not going to repeat these things. Just these are common sense stuff, right? As a YouTube learner, I'll offer the material. So it's up to you just to make something meaningful out of it, right? So said that, that's the punchline. So let's start rock and rolling, right? So we're going to jump into page chapter 1. We are just leaving out this Midnight Children kind of introduction by Pico Iyer, right? So we'll jump directly into the text itself, right? Okay. Chapter 1. Conquer taste, and you will have conquered the self, said Jagan to his listener, who asked, "Why conquer the self?" Jagan said, "I do not know, but all our sages advise us to do." So what does it mean? Like Jagan says, it starts with a conversation, right? You can highlight this. I mean, like, it's a punchline. This line has a gravity in itself, but it shows in the end that the speaker is speaking these lines without even knowing the gravity of these things, right? Okay, conquer the taste. I mean, like, if you defeat the taste, if you win the taste, if you vanquish the taste, conquer the taste, and you will have conquered the self. If you have control, if you have restriction on a person's taste, you have a restriction, you have control on yourself. I mean, like, taste is the thing that can make a person go wild, right? Like, if you are so much fond of something, you can be a slave to it. But if you can control that thing, if you can control that desire, actually you have self-control, right? Actually, this is a creed. This is something kind of important teaching. Said Jagan to his listener. There's a listener who's listening to Jagan, right? Where are we now? Where is Jagan now? We'll come to that later, right? Said Jagan to his listener, who asked, then listening to Jagan saying this thing, conquer the taste and you'll conquer the self. The listener asked, like, hey, why conquer the self? why should one, control oneself? Why should one restrict oneself? Why should one have self-control? And Jagan looks to him and says, I don't know. I don't know, but all our sages advise us to do. I'm like, I don't know, man, seriously, right? But this is a kind of a saying. This is a kind of a wishful, meaningful saying by our sages, replies Jagan. And the listener lost interest in the question. His aim was only to stimulate a conversation while he occupied a low wooden stool next to Jagan's chair. Yeah. So, I mean, like the listener who's sitting in a low chair, I mean, like it's not a high chair, but a low chair, right? Next to Jagan, we'll find out later it's this shop, right? Said, I mean, like he didn't want an answer for this question, right? I mean, like for the question he raised, like why conquer the self? It's kind of a rhetoric question, right? He didn't want an answer, but again, he wanted to make Jagan speak. That's his intention of asking this question. And he was sitting in a low chair, wooden chair, next to Jagan, right? Jagan sat under the framed picture of the goddess Lakshmi hanging on the wall and offered prayers first thing in the day by reverently placing a string of jasmine on top of the frame. Right. So as the shop starts, I mean, the shop is just commencing its business. So what they do is like as usually what our business people do, right? You have seen this thing on your own, right? You have witnessed this thing. As a Hindu, he paid tribute to the goddess of Lakshmi by offering prayers and reverently, respectfully, with a lot of with a lot of feeling, right? With a lot of respectful feeling, worshipping in a worshipping mode, placing a string of jasmine, jasmine flowers, a string, right? Jasmine on the top of the frame. So you have this Lakshmi goddess, the frame on where he is. So he's just putting this, or just placing this jasmine string of jasmines on the portrait or the frame of the Lakshmi goddess. He also lit an incense stick and stuck it in a crevice in the wall. So what he do is like he started, he apart from putting the jasmine garland, string of jasmine on the god, Jagan lit an incense stick, and he didn't have a specific place to place this incense stick, so he put it in a crevice. He says crevice, right? Crevice. Crevice means a kind of a split, a kind of a crack in the wall, or kind of a small hole, right? He put that a fissure, right? It's a crevice. So he placed this incense sticks in a fissure, in a small hole in the wall, and the air was charged at this moment. The air was charged means the air was full. The air was fully filled. The air was kind of becoming dense with the scent of jasmine and incense, and imperceptibly blended with the fragrance of sweetmeats frying in ghee in the kitchen across the hall, right? So what happens is, like at this moment, right, the smell of jasmines, jasmines are very aromatic and very fragrant kind of flowers. Jasmines and the incense sticks, the aroma, like the smoke that is emanating is just, coming out from the incense sticks. And there's another operation going on here, because it's the sweetmeat shop, right? In the kitchen, they have started cooking sweetmeats, right? They have like frying, they are not cooking, right? They are just frying sweetmeats, and the frying smell, and the jasmine smell, and the incense smell, all together blended is imperceptibly, means impossible to perceive by mind. When they are so mingled, right? These smells are mingled together. They are mixed together. It's like one smell, and you can't just separate the jasmine, you can't separate the incense, or you can't separate the frying kind of smells. It's all smells together, gives a kind of a feeling in the kitchen across the whole, right? So it's a very, I would say, aromatic start. It shows the day, the start of the day in the shop, right? good smell. Okay, it's a kind of a yes, saying. I mean, like the author is giving us a kind of a what you call evoking the senses, the smell, right, in here. All right, the imagery of the smell, right? And the listener was a cousin. So now who was listening to this Jagan when he was speaking this conquer the taste and you will have conquer the self was a person called cousin, right? A listener was a cousin. Though how he came to be called so could not be explained. In other words, they call him cousin, right? Everyone calls him cousin, but it's little hard to explain this relationship, right? It's called so could not be explained since he claimed cousinhood with many others in the town, right? So, in other words, like so many people are calling him cousin. So that's why you can't explain the real connection, I mean, like the kinship with the word cousin, right? In total incompatibilities. Incompatibilities means like there are no parallels, there are no kind of, I mean, like you can't compare these things. You can't. There are no rapport, or there's no kind of a going equally. Incompatibilities at time. I mean, like everyone calls you. For example, like how to understand this? Okay. All right. Some people, I have heard this in Sri Lanka, right? They call certain people Kiriputa. Then when you call Kiriputa, right? Neighbors call him Kiriputa. Mother call him Kiriputa. I mean, like relatives call him Kiriputa. Even the school friends sometimes call them, hey, Kiriputa. Right? Then the thing is like, how can he be Kiriputa to all, right? He has biological parents, right? So for them, he is a Kiriputa. But when for friends, again, there's no relation, right? So that's the idea here, right? So this guy, in the sense, is called cousin, but everyone calls him cousin. So total incompatibilities, right? At times. But if challenged, he could always overwhelm the skeptic with genealogy. But if someone asks you, or someone asks the cousin, right? How are you, cousin? In other words, in that example I said, where come the Kiriputa? He then cousin, right, can explain how am I cousin to you. I mean, like he can always do this if someone asks, right? He's a skeptic. Skeptic means someone who doesn't, believe. Someone who's questioning, right? If someone questions, hey, how are you cousin to me? That they say cousin, right? But what's your kinship to me? If someone mistrusts, someone disbelieves the title cousin and asks, how are you cousin to me? This guy has an amazing ability, right? He can explain. He will go for the genealogy. Write down genealogy, right? I'll give this hard word sometimes, right? If you just like pause it, just write it down. Genealogy means successive generation of kin. I mean, like who's your mother, who's your mother's mother, who's your grandmother, great grandmother, and the family tree, going back in the family tree is called genealogy, right? So successive generation of kin. So if someone asks you, how are you cousin to me? Cousin can always explain this, right? That's a good trait of cousin, right? So we have now two characters, Jagan, cousin. He was a man about town. He was a man about town. What do you mean a man about town? It means he's a loiterer. He's just a wanderer. It's like a wayfarer. I mean, like he's just walking around the town. I mean, like on this Malgudi, we are talking about Malgudi here, right? In this town, he doesn't have a particular job to do, right? He goes from place to place. That's how he just makes up his living, right? We'll come to that later. He was a man about the town and visited many places and houses from morning till night. There you go. He's on the road, right? He's on the go. He goes from this house to that house, and that's how he makes his acquaintance and friendships. And here he is at this moment in Jagan's place, right? Jagan's shop. And invariably, every day at about 4:30, I mean, like, invariable means here unmistakenly, without mistaking, somewhere around 4:30, right? He arrived, threw a brief glance and a nod at Jagan, and passed straight into the kitchen and came out 10 minutes later, wiping his mouth with the end of a towel on his shoulder, commenting, he's saying, the sugar situation maybe need watching. I hear the government is going to raise the price. Wheat flour is all right today. I gave the supplier a bit of my mind yesterday when I passed the go down street, right? Now wait. I'll explain this. Now at 4:30, definitely Qasim has a habit of visiting Jagan's shop, right? So when he comes to the shop, even Jagan is the owner of the shop, even Jagan is the boss of this shop, right? This Qasim doesn't care about, I mean, like, doesn't spend much time to greet or doesn't spend much time to talk with him. What he do is he straight, right, through a brief glance, I mean, like, short glance, short look at the boss, I mean, like, at the shop owner Jagan, and pass straight into the kitchen. I mean, like, no stop, no eyes, no conversation, nothing, no beating out of the bush. Bang, he's in the kitchen, right? Straight into the kitchen, and came out 10 minutes later, wiping his mouth with the end of towel on his shoulder. I mean, like, he spends 10 minutes in the kitchen. What do you think he may do 10 minutes in the kitchen? I think this guy is hungry, right? So when he comes to the shop, when he's hungry, he doesn't need even the permission of the shop owner just to eat from this shop, right? It's like, like අපි ගෙදරාම අපිට අම්මගේ අවසරේවත් තාත්තගේ අවසරේවත් ඕනේ නැහැ කන්න, right? Just like පෙරලගෙන තියෙන දේ කනවා. Just the same way, even he's an adult, right? The shop belongs to Jagan. Doesn't matter. This guy goes to the shop, his kitchen, spends 10 minutes, comes out, wiping his mouth at the end of the towel. Just imagine, right? And just wiping the face, I mean, like his mouth, just coming out from the kitchen, right? And just like a boss in his own way, he says to Jagan, the owner of the shop, the sugar situation maybe need watching. I mean, like, you have to monitor the sugar situation, Jagan. I hear the government is going to raise the price. Government is going to increase the price. Sugar price is going to be in a hike. It's going to be rise. I hear the government is going to raise the price, right? Wheat flour is all right today. Quality is good. Wheat flour is good. I gave the supplier a bit of my mind yesterday. It means these shop people are buying stuff from, some other vendors, right? He has to buy sugar from a different person. He has to buy wheat flour from a different person. Some other supplies from other people, right? Other vendors. So what Qasim says is, yesterday I got a chance, right, just to speak to the supplier who supplies this stuff yesterday. And when I was passing the got down street, I mean, when I was walking on the street, I made the supply. So I gave his mind. My mind means I explained the essentials, right? These are required in Jagan's shop, right? And he says to Jagan right now, Jagan, don't ask me what took me there. I spoke to the supply, then right? That also are not essential, right? It's not your business, it's my business, right? So don't ask me why I was been there, took me there. I have friends and relations all over the city, and everyone wants me to attend this or that, and I do not grudge serving others. What life is worth unless we serve and help each other. So, I mean, like Qasim adds, right? And like, don't ask me, like, certain people in this town want me to do tasks on behalf of them, right? I'm performing tasks on behalf of them, right? So don't ask me why I was there. So you are not the only one I'm supplying services in. As a matter of fact, I'm supplying services to all the people. Most people in Malgudi, so they are seeking my service. In other way, he's just telling about his importance, and in other way, I mean, like R.K. Narayan is focusing the significance of the Qasim, the character Qasim. And in the very first chapter itself, he's asserting himself, or he is just speaking for himself, right? That's it. So And he's also asking, what is life worth unless we serve and help each other? So he's asking, like, what's the use of life if we are not helping each other in this town? So that's what I'm doing by, going on places and, attending to these needs of the people. And Jagan asks, do you try the new sweet the cook experiment with today? Jagan asks from cousin, right? Did you taste the sweet, like the new sweet, the cook has made, Sivaraman will come to that later, the names and everything. Did you taste the new sweet, new thing that our cook made today? In other words, what's this? It's like what cousin does is like, he's like a taster of this food. In other words, right? Like Jagan also like him to taste. The owner also want him to taste these sweets and just get a feedback, I guess, right? In tea plantations and tea factories, not plantations, actually, tea factories, right? You see these tea tasters, right? Their entire job is tasting the teas. Like there are different cups of teas, and they are tasting it, and just they are not even swallowing it, they are just throwing it. And what happens is they give out a feedback of the quality of the tea, right? So he's like a quality tester, in other words, right? It's not said directly, but that's what we have to understand, right? So Jagan asked, did you try the new sweet the cook experiment with today? Yeah, yes, of course, it's tasty, says cousin, right? Of course, it's good stuff, yes. I have tasted it, right? Oh, I think it's the only, I think it's only an old recipe in a new shape. All sweetmeats after all are the same. Don't you agree? Jagan wants honest feedback from cousin, right? He asked from cousin. I think this new thing the cook made today, this new recipe, this new sweet, is a old recipe. It's an old sweet in a new shape, right? In a new shape. All the sweetmeats, all this, what you call the sweets, right? Confectionaries, in other words, right? All these sweetmeats, after all, the same. They are the same. The structure is same. How they made is same. The ingredients are same, but in a different way. Then the ingredients are changed a little bit. The shape of the sweetmeat changes, right? Don't you agree, cousin? Asked Jagan from cousin. No, sir, said the cousin. No, sir, like no boss, right? In your words, right? And no boss, right? No, sir, said the cousin. I still see a lot of difference between one sweet and another. I hope I shall not become a yogi and lose the taste for all, says cousin, right? Cousin's reply is witty. He has a dark humor, right? He says, no, sir, no, right? Not all sweets are not the same recipe. I still see a lot of difference between one sweet and another. For example, even in when, okay, forget these things. The text, I'll give you example in day-to-day life, right? Muscat, muscat, right? This sweet, some muscat are just, reddish color, some are yellowish color, some have some, plums on it, some have this cashew nuts on it, right? But the recipe is same. But that's what Jagan asks. Isn't this the same thing? But cousin says, no, sir. No, it's not the same thing. There are differences, right? So I have a taste, still has a lot of difference between one sweet and another. I hope I shall not become a yogi. I'm not a yogi person. I'm not ascetic. I'm not a hermit, right? I'm not a person who's depressed with life to the loose taste of all. In every sweet, I get a distinctive taste. So every sweet is special for me, in other words, right? It was then that Jagan pronounced his philosophy. Jagan listening to this thing, and we'll find these characteristics later, right? Jagan is very inclined, or very, he has a penchant, or he has a inclination, predilect, preference for philosophy. Conquer the taste, and you will conquer the self. You remember where it started? Where it's the relation to that opening statement is right here, right? That statement came out from Jagan's mouth at this moment, right? That's the start of the very first punchline of the novel, comes from here, right? So the context is here. Conquer the taste and you will have conquer the self. They chatted thus for a half an hour more. They are talking to each other. Right? In other words, like what you find is like Cousin is a good friend, right, of Jagan. They're talking for half hour. If you hate a person, you don't talk for half hour, right? Yes. So they chatted thus for half an hour more, and then Jagan asked, "Do you know what I eat nowadays?" And Jagan asked the question, raised the question from Cousin. Hey Cousin, do you know what I'm eating nowadays, right? Cousin watches while. Anything new? You know, they are coming. And Jagan gleefully, happily says, yeah, I have given up salt since this morning. I have stopped eating salt. Says Jagan. You know, right? These things you should know. Sugar, salt are bad for health in excessive amounts. Right? Sodium is salt, right? It can cause heart troubles and everything if you take it in immoderate or excessive. That's why you know, these dry fish and things have a lot of salt, and that's if you're taking excessively consuming salt, it's not good for your heart, right? We'll keep that aside. So he happily says, I have given up salt since this morning. Jagan said it with a glow of triumph. I mean, like he's shining with kind of victory, right? Right? Just like the glow of triumph, it's like, I have stopped eating salt. He felt satisfied with the effect produced and explained his theory. I mean, he's very happy just to announce these things, right? Some people say, like, I have controlled sugar, I have controlled salt. When they talk about their health habits, they are kind of happy, right? So in the same way, he is happy and he's explaining his theory. In other words, Jagan has a theory about health. Jagan has a theory about his well-being, right? So he's explaining these things to the Cousin. One must eat only natural salt. You know, Cousin? So you have to eat only natural salt. You don't have to take this kind of other salts, right? Cousin is now giving a glance. Imagine this situation, right? What is natural salt? Asked the Cousin and added, the salt that dries on one's back when one has run a mile in the sun. දැන් මොනවද ඔය දැන් ජේගන් කියනවා අපි කන්න ඕන ස්වාභාවික ලුණු කියලා. කසින් බලන්න මොකක්ද ස්වාභාවික ලුණු? කෙනෙක් අවුවේ දිව්වට පස්සේ දාඩිය එනවනේ. ඒ දාඩිය ඇඟේම වේරුණාට පස්සේ සුදු පාටට පේනවනේ. Right? Have you seen that when you are excessively sweating, right? You get this sweat, perspiration, right? When it dries, you can see this white kind of substance, white kind of a soot-like substance, right? They can maybe ඇඟේ ඇලිලා තියෙනවනේ සුදු පාට જાතියක් ඒ ලුණු දාඩිය වේරුණාම ඒව the natural salt, right? When back runs mile in the sun, you can then why even the කන්නේ කියලා නෙමෙයි, right? ඔයා දැන් natural salt කනවා කියන්නේ it's a very ironical kind of a very witty answering, right? In other words, Cousin is joking. Jagan make a wry face in kind of a humorously sarcastic and mocking, right? It's like a bullet. Kind of wry face at the coarse reference. Coarse means very rough. It's kind of a not smooth, right? It's kind of jagged kind of a reference. He had the outlook of a soul disembodied floating about the grime of this earth, right? He had the outlook, I mean, at this remark, right? When Jagan said something, when Cousin said something nasty like this, right? Remarks, right? He fell floating about the grime of this earth. Grime means, write down if you don't know what is grime. It's like the filth, dirt, or grease kind of things, right? It's called the grime, dirt, kind of soot, right? Grime of this earth. At 55, the appearance was slight and elfish. His brown skin was translucent. With this thing, R.K. Narayan jumps into the physical appearances of Jagan. Now, with this moment, it's how Jagan looks, how Jagan's appearance is described by R.K. Narayan, right? It's important. The author always has to introduce how the character looks, how the character speaks, how the character's outlooks, right, is important. And now R.K. Narayan is doing that part by saying that he's 55. He's old man, right? 55. Very close to retiring age, which is almost 60, right? Okay, now this is a private shop and it's owned by Jagan. At 55, his appearance was slight and elfish. Elfish, like, kind of like, elf is a mythical creature. Elves are like fairies, right? Kind of nasty side with the fairies, right? It's like a nasty elf, are mischievous fairies. It's not that regular fairies or angels. Angels, all right? Right, forget it. So at 55, his appearance was slight and elfish. His brown skin was translucent. His brown skin is translucent. What do you mean by translucent? Can see through. I mean, like when I say you can see through a person's skin, it doesn't mean like යාගේ skin එක නිකන් polythene නෙමෙයි ඈ. ඒක නෙමෙයි මේ කියන්නේ. දැන් කියනෝනේ ඒ කියන්නේ අර නිකන් you can't see his heart and you can't see his veins and you can't see his arteries and everything. That's not what I'm saying. When the author is saying when his skin is translucent. Have you seen a very old person, somewhere around 80? Can you see their skin has this natural glow in it? It's like some people can see when they are old, the nerves can be seen very closely to their skin. That happens with age, right? And when the skin is becoming translucent, you can see these little nerves and things, edges of the skin, right? So that's what he means here. His brown skin was translucent. His brows receded gently into the walnut shades of boldness. His eyebrows, right? Receded gently into the walnut shades of boldness. I mean, like they are just receding means going down when people get old, their physical appearances are changing. So that's what is described here. His walnut shade of boldness, and beyond the fringe of his hair fell a couple of speckled waves on his nape. Yes. So the idea here is beyond the fringe of his hair fell in a couple of speckled waves. Speckled means like the idea here is like speckled means like the thing has dots and dots and dots, right? It's like but that idea doesn't work here. I mean, certain way the author use words that we'll find here is little bit out of context. I mean, he used the words just to give a, if you stick to the dictionary meaning, sometimes if you stick to the lexicon, right, it will not give the idea. That's something some students find it difficult to get. There are like poetic implications here. I mean, like the author is having this poetic license sometimes just to use certain words, just to give paint an image, but you have to be careful at the same time when you are paraphrasing these images. So what I'm saying here is, imagine a person, right, has this nape means the back side of the neck is the nape. This side is the nape, right? So he has this couple of hair, the fringe of hair. Samar නාකි කට්ටිය කියන්නේ වයසට යද්දි එයා කොටි කපන්නේ කොණ්ඩේ ටිකක් බෙල්ලට වැටලා තියෙනවා. That's what he says here, right? The couple of speckled waves on his nape. Fringes means edges. Edges are called the fringes, right? His chin was covered with whitening bristles as he shaved only at certain intervals. I mean, like his face is covered with whitening bristles. Bristles you find in a toothbrush, right? These are kind of stems. So his beard is, you have this white color in his beard, right? And this guy has a habit of not regularly shaving. Yeah, just like all the hair is white, right? Whitening bristles as he shaved at certain intervals, feeling that to view oneself daily in a mirror was an intolerable European habit. I mean, for Jagan, shaving means you have to look to the mirror always, right? For Jagan doesn't like just looking to the mirror, looking your face and always grooming yourself, right? And Jagan thinks it's intolerable, means can't bear. I mean, like it's hard to bear. It's this kind of he's not comfortable in it, right? Intolerable. He can't tolerate it. he can't forbear, bear it, right? Always looking to the mirror just to groom yourself, or just to, look yourself good in the mirror. He's not that much concerned about his outlooks, right? He's a guy somewhere around 55, and he's having this kind of old ways of life, and he's hating this European habit of, he thinks that looking to the mirror is always a European habit, and he just doesn't like it, right? Not like you guys, right? I know you guys. You always like to look to the mirror, always having this new hairstyle, and and all these burns, and the cuts and everything, right? So for you, it's a very tolerable European habit, right? For not for Jagan, right? So he wore a loose jibba over his dhoti. Aha, what is the jibba and what is the dhoti? Hmm? Any idea what is a jibba and what is a dhoti? Right, we come with that. He wore a loose jibba over his dhoti, and both made of material spun with his own hand. Every day he spun for an hour and proceeded enough yarn for his sartorial requirements. Sartorial means tailoring requirements, right? In other words, we'll underline this. This is something important. We'll underline. When I say underline, I mean underline. When I say highlight, I mean highlighted, right? So we'll at the moment underline it. So just use a pencil or a pen. He wore a loose jibba over his dhoti. Jibba is the top dress, and dhoti is the underdress. It's like pants in our words, right? Jibba is kind of a shirt, but it's not the shirt and pants. If you have seen the Pakistani dress, Pakistani national dress, right? Have you seen that? Or the Indians also have this in traditional Indian dress. This dhoti is the for example, imagine a Nilame kit, right? The thing that Nilame wears underneath is kind of a dhoti, but it's not exactly dhoti. The shape is something like that. I can't explain this. Just Google it, right? So you get the exact idea what is a dhoti. You can have loose, baggy, just like one leg is like this. It's a nice dress. It's not a tight dress, right? It's a very loose. It's a good, right? It's a very comfortable dress because these are very hot climates, right? We call tropical climates. These costumes are really comfortable costumes, and when it's done by cotton, it's really comfortable, right? So Jagan wore a loose jibba, right? Loose shirt and a dhoti, both made of material. And the funny thing is, not funny thing, it's a kind of serious thing, right? Is made of his own hands. This material, this cloth is made by Jagan himself, right? Every day he spun for an hour. Even he's a busy man. He's running a business. He has time every day, 1 hour, right? It seems like a hobby for him, right? Just he's spinning, he's making his own. He's spinning a wheel, right? We'll find that later. He's making his own clothes. In other words, he's attending to his own sartorial needs. His own tailoring needs are satisfied by himself by making his own material, right? He never possessed more than 2 sets of clothes at any time, and he delivered all the excess yarn in neat bundles to the local handloom committee in the exchange of cash. Additionally, even he made enough cloth, right? This guy only has 2 sets of dhotis and jibbas, right? Forget Jagan. How many sets of uniforms do you have? Like school uniforms? How many? I asked this question from my children, right? My students in school, and they probably say, "Yes, sir, we have like 6 sets of uniforms and stuffs, right?" So, but Jagan is. So what's the difference between you and Jagan? You are spending a luxurious life. You are spending a kind of a lavish life. But Jagan is spending a kind of a ascetic kind of a life. Is a very controlled life, right? So he's not engaging on having a lot of unnecessary things, right? So he's a minimalistic person. That's what we should understand. So he only have like 2 sets of dhotis and jibba. So I'm not going into details of that. So exchange of cash. Although the cash, so what he do is the excessive things that he made, right? The extra clothes, extra what you call the fabric he makes, yarn he makes, he give it to a special place called the handloom committee, right? Local handloom committee, and the handloom committee gives some cash to him. So he sells it, right? But there's a catch in this sale. And don't think that he's, I mean, like, you may think like he's doing a seed meal business, right? And again, now he's, what? He's also selling these things, right? But there's a hitch here. Although the cash he does earn was less than 5 rupees a month. I mean, like, sorry. I mean, later on, right? Later on, we'll find that the daily earnings of this person, right, is at his time in his shop is big money, right? But by spinning his own clothes, right, his own yarn, he sell these to the hardloom committee and only get like 5 rupees for each month. I mean, like, this money is nothing. This money is just like trivial. This money is very insignificant compared to what he earns in his shop. But still, he felt a sentimental thrill in receiving it. I mean, like, he's getting a satisfaction of selling it. He's getting a satisfaction of, having it. For example, like, okay, maybe your father, right? Just imagine this forget the handloom thing. Your father may have a big business of car sales, right? Imagine like that. He's selling 2 cars or 3 cars every month. Big money. But at the same time, from the small days, he had this love for home growing. හිතන්නකෝ ගෙදර වමන දෙයකට එයා පොඩි කාලේ ඉඳලා ආසයි. ඉතින් තාත්තා වට්ටක්ක වෙලක් ගෙදර හදනවා. හරි? වට්ටක්ක හැදෙනවා දැන් මේකේ. ඔය වට්ටක්කයක් කාට හරි විකුණලා රුපියල් 10ක් 15ක් ගන්න එක තාත්තට අර කාඩ් දෙකක් විකුණනට වඩා ආතල් කියන එක තමයි මේ කියන්නේ. Right? You got the idea, right? That's how I explain these things to my students, right? So that's the sentimental value. වට්ටක්ක විකුණලා ගන්න එක තමයි ජොලිය මේකේ. I mean, like the same way, right? This guy has a way of enjoying selling handloom and taking this 5 rupees has a much more sentimental value for him, right? Sentimental, really seeing it. He had begun the habit when Gandhi visited the town over 20 years ago and had been commended for it. I mean, like, how did he get this habit of making or spurning his own costumes? I mean, like, his own yarn. It came from Gandhi. When Gandhiji, Mahatma Gandhi, visited Malgudi certain time ago, when he was young, Mahatma Gandhi has praised this habit of, a person making his own clothes is a great virtue, a great way of living, a very important way of living, and not just being dependent on others, right, just for your requirements. It's a very good way of living. And Jagan had got these feelings inside him from a very small age, right? So, for a very young age, right? So that's why he finds it's very sentimental, right? Commended for it. He wore a narrow almond-shaped pair of glasses. Almond shape is that small seed, right? It means like he has these glasses, these small glasses with small lenses, right? Almond-shaped pair of glasses in a yellowish frame. The frame is yellow. It's not black, right? As nowadays, mostly. Nowadays, yellow frames are kind of gaudy, right? But anyway, that's what he wears. And peeped at the word over their pale rim. And sometimes, while doing the thing, he peeps at the word over the pale rim. Just like, some school teachers, right? Arisar film wala pennanone naki misla, naki sirla, naki principal la, glass eකට උඩින් බලන්න හිටපුවම something like that, right? He pale over the rim, right? He looks over the rim of the glasses sometimes, right? He drapes his shoulders. Drape means dressed. He dressed his shoulders in a khada shawl. Khada is a kind of a material, right? Khada shawl with gaudy yellow patterns of it. Gaudy is kind of a too colorful. Gaudy is a word is like too excessively colorful. අර අපි සමහර එනවනේ සමහර අපි දැකලා තියෙනවා some ladies, right, or even gents, right, especially dressed in their saris. There are gaudy colors. Okay, what happens like if you are a girl, right? If you are a lady, imagine, right? You go to a wedding in a gaudy sari. Will you get the whole attention? Of course, you'll get all the attention, but it's like in a very negative way. Wedding එකට යනවා සාරියක් ඇඳගෙන. හැබැයි වෙසක් තොරනවා වගේ. ලයිට් පත් වෙනවා හැමතැනම. Just like, I mean, like, is it a good thing? And just like total yellow color, just like අපි කියනකොට අර there's this Sinhalese kind of a discriminative word, right? අපි කියනකොට දෙමළ පාට කියලා කියන්නේ is like, no, I'm like, sorry for the word, right? But I'm just using these kind of funny references just to make things much more understandable for the majority of readers, right? So I'm not racial discriminating or anything here. If you are just a Tamil student or just a Tamil teacher, by the way, right? Please don't get offended, right? This is my way. As much as R.K. Naran has dark humor, I do possess a knack for dark humor as well, right? So bear with me. Said that, right? So the idea is gaudy colors are, I mean, like this colorful, it's too excessively colorful things, right? So he's having this gaudy kind of a khada shawl, yellow patterns on it, and he's shod his feet, means he dressed his feet. He covered his feet, right? You shod yourself sometimes with nice attire, or just, okay. He dressed his feet with a thick sandals, not smooth sandals, thick sandals, right? Thick sandals made out of leather of an animal which had died of old age. It's not animal killed for skin, an animal who has died out of old age is used to, that skin is used to make his sandals. Why? Why is all these complexities, right? Why he's not eating salt? Why he's not, I mean, like, looking too much into a mirror? Why he's not here wearing sandals made of live animal skin? It should be a dead animal of old age. It has to go to a natural death to get its skin to make his sandals. These are weird characteristics, right? Weird behaviors, right? We find out. Being a follower of a Gandhi, he thinks he's a good follower of a Gandhi. And Gandhi ji has explained, I do not like to think that a living creature should have its throat cut for the comfort of my feet. So Jacob thinks like, no. I don't want an animal to be killed, to be taken its skin to make my shoes. No, I live by non-violence. So if I take skin just to make my sandals, it should come from a dead animal. He's sticking to his own way of Gandhi's principles, right? So it's a good thing, right? In a sense. And this habit of not killing an animal to have his own skin to make his sandal is a very expensive habit. It's a very expensive, I mean, like, it's a very eccentric, kind of weird, kind of unnatural habit, a characteristic, character trait, a disposition. And this habit occasionally involves, sometimes involves Jagan in excursions, means traveling to remote villages, means far away villages where a cow or calf was reported to be dying. So in other words, when he get the news the cow or calf is dying somewhere even in a far village, Jagan goes there. Jagan travels to that place. Jagan, that's what they mean by excursions, right? And when he secured the hide means when he acquires, when he gains the hide means the skin of this dead animal, he brings it back to his place, right? And he soaked it. Soak means you put it in a soak means it's like this, you put it in a liquid, right? You merge it, submerge it in a liquid. As in Sinhala we called it pongona, right? Pongona kiyala dannawane, right? So he soaked it in some solution. He has this solution, right? Because this skin, you can't directly take the skin of an animal and just consume it. You have to go through a process of just making it, manufacturing it, or just soaking it, and what you call it, just tanning it until it's good enough just to be consumed in a leather product. So just to make it a leather, you have to do some things to it, right? So that's why he's soaking it in a solution and then turn it over to an old cobbler, and he then after that give that skin to an old cobbler he knew, who had this little repair shop under a tree in the Albert Mission compound. So he takes this skin after he's doing the process even, right? So how many things are he doing for himself, right? He is filing the skin and he's processing the skin and he's making this skin, and when it's becoming leather, he takes it to the cobbler. Cobbler is a person who do this repair, like shoe things, right? Who's creating shoes and who's sewing shoes and things, right? So he takes it to the cobbler and at the Albert Mission, and the cobbler in return, right, prepares his sandals. If he could do the sandals himself, he'd probably do it, but unfortunately he don't have that skill. So he takes the hide to the skin to the cobbler, right? So that's how it happens.